That's better. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Dave.
How is everybody?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good, good. Let's see if anyone else turns up. How have you been, Dave? You been working? Been
Yeah,
busy?
yeah. I've been studying for my foundation um, amateur radio license.
Oh, right.
So I took the exam yesterday and passed. So license should come through in the post shortly.
That's good, that's good.
Then I'll start training for the intermittent. Hopefully, get the full license by the end of the year.
Fair enough. Is that your goal for this year then?
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know if I'm going to actually invest in any proper equipment. I'll keep an eye out for a decent SDR
Mhm.
transceiver, but those things are bloody expensive.
Yeah, I've heard you can hack like certain devices into SDR radios.
I'll have to
I
be
can't remember what it
researching.
was now. It might be an FPGA or like a
Okay.
USB oscilloscope or something like that. Something
Hmm.
weird.
Although on my foundation license, I'm not actually allowed to construct any
Hmm.
transmitting equipment. So
Well, they don't
yeah,
want you putting too many watts out there, do they?
they do not.
Yeah.
But I should be able to pass the intermediate without too much hassle.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same as the foundation, except
Mhm.
with a bit of added mathematics and theory around propagation and stuff. So I don't think that'll be a problem.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Hmm. That's cool. You've been doing any CNC work lately? I know you were working on a laser engraver, wasn't it?
Oh,
That's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah.
You
Laser.
mean
yeah,
the desk burner?
yeah. No, I I bought some TMC 2360 or whatever they're
Hmm.
called, stepper motor drivers for it, but
Oh yeah.
then had trouble getting them configured via SPI. I
Hmm.
think it was a conflict with an SPI display I had hooked up on the same bus or
Hmm.
something. Then I ran out of time and I haven't looked at it since, and the whole thing's in pieces on my bench.
Fair enough. Have you thought about using a more off-the-shelf board, controller board with the drivers built in?
I've already got one with the old drivers. I just wanted to upgrade them because they're a bit
Ah.
noisy, and there's no end stops on it, and it'd be
Hmm.
nice to get soft end stops, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was supposed to be a really quick, simple upgrade.
Yeah, it's never the way, is it? You know. Have you heard about my printer, Dave?
No,
The extruder axis on the 3D printer blew up.
blew up.
Yeah, the driver on the board died,
Dear.
so I had to get a new one. Fortunately, the guys over at Duet 3D, if you've heard of them,
Mm.
they gave me a board to replace it with,
Oh,
which I'm
fantastic!
very grateful for because it saves me £100.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, and that's up and running at the minute. It's downstairs, that's why it's not in the corner there where it usually is. Because I got given the Ethernet version.
Mm.
Because
Right.
it's got
Yeah.
like it's got like an Octoprint style server built into it.
Nice.
It
Um,
looks pretty cool.
hmm, yeah, I found it very handy, but with it being Ethernet and not having Ethernet in the office,
Mm.
I've had to have it downstairs for a while. I'll get one of those power line things for the socket here.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those in the house. It's so much easier, isn't it?
Hmm,
We don't really worry too much about slightly flaky connections at times.
yeah, exactly, exactly, and it's not that crucial for the 3D printer because
No.
the only reason you use the Ethernet is to set a print off, basically.
Yeah.
You know, but hey, that was pretty interesting nonetheless.
I've just recently bought a filament runout sensor for mine
Hmm.
because I got some pink filament to print off some stuff for my daughter Eve, and
Hmm.
it's really snappy. It snapped 3 times before I'd even finished one print, and that's with a really simple path going straight up into the extruder stepper. So yeah, got a run out sensor, and I'm also going to build the filament up high on top of it's a Delta printer, so I'm going to put it up there and reroute it all and see if I can. I've also extracted. Where is it? Oh, the motor from an old hard drive. So I'm thinking of doing a quick release thing on here and putting the spool on top, mounted on a shaft underneath the top of the here, so it'll be mounted here because roof clearance up here is pretty bad in my attic. So that'll be fun. Plus, I've bought a brushless mode. What's it called? A BLDC, isn't it? Yeah, brushless DC motor. Yeah, a BLDC driver on a while back, and so I tried it out on this. Had this in a vice on the desk, spinning at around 10,000 RPM. Scary shit.
Yeah, I've heard horror stories of people touching hard drive platters when they're spinning. It's never sounds good.
Yeah, well, the amount of energy that must have been in that thing whilst it was at full speed.
Well, it certainly doesn't look like a thin platter either.
Well, that's 3 of them lined up. So fair bit of mass there.
Guess that's what you want, really. But let's see if... yep. I've still got a fair bit of silk pink filament left.
Nice.
So this is XL'd stuff. So it's like the professional stuff that 3D prints do.
Okay.
And it is a really nice finish when it's printed. Do I have anything? Yep. A little Among Us dude thing.
That's so cute.
That is a really nice finish.
It is. Yeah. It's expensive. It's like twice the price of standard PLA, but it is worth it.
Do you know of any good rainbow filaments? Because I'm looking for some, but the only ones I can really find are companies like Sun, and the last spool of Sun filament I picked up, it had the same problem as Dave. It kept snapping. The print would stop, and within 5 minutes, the tension from the spool to the extruder, the filament would just snap.
Yeah, mine wasn't very nicely wound. It did seem to be a few crossovers.
This wasn't very well wound either.
So I don't know if that's the problem on mine. But I pulled off about 1 meter's worth and then just started bending it with my hands. And I was getting nice sort of flexible bends all the way along. And then every so often it would just snap with the same force and the same bend radius. So I'm pretty sure it was a dodgy batch and there were like parts of it that weren't as well mixed or something. I'm not sure about what process would lead to that. I've emailed it's an Amaze 3D, AMZ 3D filament. Yeah, I messaged them on Facebook and they've suggested adjusting the tensioner on my extruder. So yeah, they're not going to admit to having a bad batch, but some of the reviews did also mention that same problem. So I don't know. I've had their black and their white filament and not had any issues there.
That's an odd one.
This is the filament. It's just really, really brittle.
Blimey.
It's just not going to break now, is it?
Well, yeah, that's it. You know, some parts of it were fine for me, and then others would just snap like that.
Yeah.
Pretty awful. But then again, the spool of filament was like 12 quid.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
I tend to just go to 3D prints at this point.
Yeah, I'm going to stick to 3D prints from now on.
Was that 12 quid for a kilogram?
12 quid for a kilo.
Nice.
That is pretty cheap.
It'd be nice if it worked anyway.
Yeah. Might be alright.
It might actually work if it was stuck through a dehydrator for a day. It might work fine. The bag wasn't vacuum sealed, so
Hmm.
Hmm.
I found that an old Rose's tin is the perfect size for keeping my filament in, and I usually keep desiccant in the middle. So
I
I've got a few of those.
have a lot of those. They are currently full of embroidery thread, though, so I'd have to find somewhere else for that. That
Yeah,
also needs to be kept dry.
one of mine is full of EEPROM stuff,
Hmm.
including
One on the shelf.
my favourite piece of equipment, an EEPROM eraser.
Oh, is it
I'm
one of the
actually-
old UV ones? Is it?
It's actually a toothbrush sterilizer, battery operated, but three or four blasts from this, and it'll wipe any EEPROM. It's amazing.
Even
Just
through
the
the
trying to do it.
even through the black casing on it.
Oh no, has to be
Oh.
window.
The old EEPROM, the ones with little windows.
Yeah.
What is EEPROM?
Erasable programmable read-only memory, and the let's see if I can remember how it works. There's basically you charge the there's like a grid of oh god, can anyone else describe this better than I can? It's like a row and column grid, and then they charge cells when you program it. Actually, no, when you program it, I think you discharge them. Yeah, I think you discharge them, and so you end up with ones and zeros.
Hmm.
And then to wipe it, you actually change them all to ones by shining some UV light through a window, and the energy inside the photons energizes the cells, which set them all to ones. And then to program it, you just basically ground them to set them to zero or something like that. I think it's probably not quite that simple, because sometimes you need like 12 volts to program them. So I don't know if it's a minus 12 volts you need or something. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, it's really cool, and it's mind-blowing that shining a light into a chip can actually change it. But I suppose we get the same with cosmic rays flipping bits in memory. It's probably a similar thing, but yes,
Yeah, it's a
really cool.
similar story. I think it was to like the first transistor or something like that, where it was literally just a block of silicon with some probes on it, and they noticed an amplification when the blades of a fan nearby were changing the signal. So technically, I think it was the first transistor was technically a photo transistor, because it was the light that was changing the signal. Like, oh, if that can be used to change a signal like that, then maybe we can do it electrically. I can't remember the
Nice.
exact story, but it was similar to that.
Andy's asking if it's okay to join the call.
Yeah, that's fine.
Go away.
You were too late.
And yeah, EEPROMs are used for the basic operating system of computers, like old 8-bits. When you get the screen come up, all of the characters would usually be stored in an EEPROM, and the copyright Sinclair 1982 message or whatever would be in the EEPROM, that sort of thing. And a computer with a BIOS, when you switch it on, that's an EEPROM. But nowadays they're EEPROMs, electronically erasable, so you don't need a UV light anymore. You just blast it with a bit of voltage. That does the trick.
Yeah.
Just booting Mutt Pooper up.
What?
No.
English.
Your Mutt Pooper. You get your shoes all dirty.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of prints this week. Well, since the printer's back up and running anyway. Because there's the Nerf gun competition that we're doing.
Yeah, I haven't really been following Discord too much. I've been too busy spending every second I've got spare studying.
Yeah.
I saw some messages about that, but I deliberately didn't get involved because I knew I wouldn't have time to engage.
That's fair enough. But
it sounds interesting. Can't wait to see what things people come up.
Yeah, we get.
I'd have liked.
Go on.
Sorry, go on. I'd have liked to have joined, but I am flat broke until a client decides it's time to pay me.
Yeah, there is a
It's,
bit of an entry fee to it at the minute. I'm hoping if we can get some revenue in, that we could potentially just do it all out of pocket, as it were. Because, quite frankly, if you're buying half a dozen or a dozen Nerf guns, you could maybe get a small bulk discount. Or I think there's a couple of other suppliers that we might be able to go to, because we're a charity, to get toys and equipment for like 20% of the retail price.
Mm.
So if we could get a dozen Nerf guns or something from them, we could do a competition for like £5 entry fee, something like that.
I wonder if the Entertainer does charity stuff.
Hmm.
It wouldn't surprise me. They're like a Christian thing, aren't they? I'm sure I saw a sign on their window saying, "We will never open on Sundays because that's when we celebrate our imaginary friend," or something like that.
I can't remember.
It doesn't sound like the Christmas if they call it their imaginary friend.
It wasn't
Like
just Christmas
Christian.
every Sunday, I think. But that might have been a different one. It might not have been the Entertainer. It's one of these toy shops.
Yeah, but no, it's something we might do going forward if the competition's successful. We've got 5 entrants, including myself. So it should be some good fun, I think. I'd love to see
How
what
long
the others can
people
do. 2 months.
2 months to mod a Nerf gun. Oh, that sounds all right.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
Nerf guns did you buy?
We've got 9, and 4 of them have been given out, plus 1 for myself.
Does that mean you're out of pocket unless you get more people involved then?
Well, no. Fortunately, because of the £25 entry fee, I'm covered we're covered on the finances front. It just means we might have some Nerf guns spare. Hello, Andy.
Hello.
Well, Dave. And
How are you
Cameron.
doing?
Hey, Emily.
You're right.
Yeah, not so bad. A few bits and pieces falling apart, but have a hernia now. Lovely.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That's great.
Have you named it?
Not so great, I would say, but anyway.
Is it an innie or an outie?
It's an out. Well, I think they generally are out. I don't know. I didn't know there were 2 types really.
I think you get ones that don't actually bulge out. I'm pretty sure that, like when women have had a cesarean and they get stitched back up, I think they can get bust internally and it's still cast as a hernia. But then you get these awesome ones that like bulge out of your belly like something's going to burst out and run across the room.
Alien style, yeah, that's what I've got. It's not massive, but yeah.
and the conversation turns charming.
Yeah, exactly. That was my intention, by the way. I wasn't planning to mention it, but you
No.
asked.
It's all right.
I'm autistic. I can't help but to divulge.
You've been doing some 3D printing, though, haven't you, Andy? From what I've
Yeah.
seen. Got
various-
anything to show?
Well, oh yeah, there's that. So this was an idea. So it's to make hexagonal shelves.
Oh, right.
Hmm.
So it's basically push fit with screws to hold it together,
Hmm.
and that's just like a tester.
Hmm.
Which it seems to work quite well. It seems to have a decent amount. It doesn't need to be massively strong.
Hmm.
I think under weight it probably wouldn't be too good, but the intention is the effect. It's not for heavy items. Really for
Yeah.
Nice.
Hexagon shelves typically aren't all that practical for heavy things, are they?
No, exactly. my
They're practical for anything other than hexagonal loads.
Hmm.
well, I think you can use the cells to put ornaments in and stuff. That's what my
Or they're good for like storing yarn in because you can kind of just like stack it and like shove it all in there.
that's a good idea. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. My son in Birkenhead said, "Hey, could you do me some hexagon shelves, Dad?" So that's like, I've got to print for what he wants. So I'm probably going to have to print about 30 of these,
Mhm.
and then about 10 of those. I don't know.
I need something to store these in.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if they'd stack well in the hexagon though.
What you could probably do is if you had like some dowel rods, use those to kind of like set them on so you could like stagger it within the hexagon.
Mm.
Yeah, that might work.
Or very small hexagons, and just have one in each.
Yeah,
Very tightly
Beehive.
knit very tightly knit honeycomb.
Hexagons in the
This-
hexagons.
Mm.
this is how I'm storing my thread, though.
Mm.
Oh, didn't you 3D print that?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
The first couple were actually just straight up flat, and they started popping off. And Emily said to Chamfer, forgotten what it is now.
Chamfer.
Is it a chamfer? Okay, chamfer the right angle, and it's really standing up to it now.
Yeah, it's one of those things, especially for small or quite narrow cylinders. It's worth doing.
Mm-hmm.
Not always practical, but if you can, then do it. Let's see. Do I actually have a couple of parts here that might be good? So, for example, this part, you can see there's no chamfer on the bottom of these pegs,
Mm-hmm.
but that's because you can see one's already snapped, but it kind of fits in like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like a little linkage. So there's no space for a chamfer in this design.
No.
But
So you know that coffee grinder that I fixed, the first thing that I 3D printed.
oh yeah, I remember.
So that was nearly 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Failed again.
Mhm.
So I still have the design, so I reprinted it, but it failed again. So I think maybe I was just lucky with the print on that. So I redesigned it, and it's got a. If I can go and get one. Because I've got, in fact, that one that I put up earlier, was a test piece of that. Because it only takes 5 minutes to print, but it's because of the shearing forces, so it's driving the mill. So you've got a rod with a flattened section on it, so that flanges on the side, that drives the plastic piece, which drives the mill. Obviously, the shearing forces between the mill body and this piece of plastic plug that's inside it, which is what I 3D printed, right across
a layer line.
Just one layer. So what I did with that, I did some chamfers on the edges of the lobes that interlock into the bottom of the mill. But I also put put hollow holes down through the lobes that actually do the driving. So it's 4 of them. The original piece of plastic only had 2 lobes, but I made one with 4 because the mill bottom has got the cross pattern in the bottom of it. And it has a bit of a chamfer in there as well. So basically made a plug that fills the whole lot of it. It's holding up so far, so we'll see how it goes. Will it outlast the other one? I don't know.
Are you able to print in nylon?
Not on mine, I don't think.
Okay.
I think the main reason being that I only have I have magnetic beds, and for nylon you need a very hot bed.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm printing at about 80 degrees at the moment anyway, because it's cold up in the studio. And I've been having real problems with curling. So, and it's just the cold. I mean, back in the summer, things were printing fine on it. It's just because the air is cold enough up there that it's not bonding.
Is your printer small enough that you can just shove one of those freezer bags over the top of it? Those padded bags.
I have padded bags that might just about fit it, but then you can't see what's going on, and then I can't get mesmerized as it's doing its.
Octoprint camera LEDs. That's what you need.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I did try something interesting today, and it's Emily's fault because you wanted that benchy printed without a brim. Now, I don't usually use a brim, but I've started to recently because of the fact that I've been having this curling problem. I think it's partly wear on the bed because that bed's I don't know. About 6 months old, I suppose. No, actually, no, it's getting on for. It's probably 8 months old actually. It had a lot of face mask frames printed on it, so it got quite a lot of use. But that's really only worn it in the pattern of the those designs. But I think mainly it's the cold. So what I did, I was looking around for Pritt sticks because I know that various people have had success with them. We haven't got any. But what we did have was kids' white PVA glue.
Mm.
And I thought, it's probably not that different from Magigoo. It works really well.
Yep.
I was really surprised. It's cheap as chips as well.
Mm.
In comparison to Magigoo, which is stupendously expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've used it a few times on that, and it's worked fine. On the Trunk Core XY one that I've been working on today, it has a fiberglass bed. It's a PCB without any copper cladding.
Mm.
So it's just literally the material, fiberglass material, and that it sticks really well to that. I was quite surprised, but it's out of action again because that's the hot end. It was leaking. It's a dual, so it's a mixing hot end,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you'll be able to make that out on there. Yeah, there you go. See all this? It was leaking filament all over the place. Actually, that's the old one. I got a new one. This was one of the faults that it had when I got it. So this was the replacement one.
Mm-hmm.
But that one, you can see there's PLA all over here.
I can't say I'm a fan of the idea of the mixing heads.
Well, it is what it is. It's how it was when it arrived in my hands as a broken unit. And so I spent today bundling up all the cables and things because I put it together, but I'd never really kind of finished it. I've made a lot of good progress. I've got it working with Repetier, which I've never done. I just never got around to doing it. So I'm glad to get that off my list, but it's leaking again. So I've got to work out how to prevent it from leaking.
Have you got any PTFE tape in the threads?
About to say, some Teflon tape would do.
Yeah, look. Can you
It
see
looks like it, yeah.
Yeah. The old one didn't have it, but the new one has got some PTFE. You can just about see it on the camera there.
Was that stuck, or was it? Was that provided?
I put that on.
Okay.
I can't take these out, but
it might still be poor manufacturing tolerances.
Yeah, I think the pressures are quite high, aren't they? And
they normally do the threads a little undersized. Only partially tap them.
These don't feel partially tapped. I mean, this is the old one, and I'm able to. I mean, I've undone it.
Yeah.
But I'm able to do it up by hand, so it's not gripping particularly tightly until it compresses on the end.
Mm-hmm.
So,
is it the same problem for both extruders, hot ends? Is it the same? Yeah.
There was PLA leaking out from both because obviously this one has an internal chamber.
Yep.
It forms a Y.
Yeah, it's a bit of a permanent solution, but have you thought about brazing it?
It's aluminium, and I can't braze. I don't have the equipment either. So
you can get aluminium brazing rods on Amazon.
Yeah, possibly so. Another problem it's got is that obviously because to make that chamber inside, they bored down through here and tap those.
It could also fill the chamber, yeah.
But they need to bore across. So there's a grub in the end of both ends. So this bigger hole is where the heating element goes. But the small end is just the bore hole that forms the cross channel to mix the filament. And it leaks out of the end of those as well. Now the old one has got some kind of jointing compound or like gasket compound. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. No, it hasn't. So there's white stuff around the edge of the grub screw, and they are. I can't get the grub screws out, which is a right pain because earlier this evening I lost that grub screw. I was trying to put it back in, and it just pinged. It fell out, and it's.
It could be hardened silicon.
Sorry, Ken,
It could be hardened silicon. Is there a solvent that dissolves silicon?
There is, but you don't want to deal with that stuff. It's
No.
really not
Oh,
nice.
okay.
Yeah, it's pretty resistant to most things. In fact, silicon, isn't it? I think you can kind of break it down by chemical decomposition rather than.
I think you can also freeze it and chisel it off that way. It's quite brittle when it's frozen.
Right.
They might have pushed in with the threads though. There's a thread lock.
I mean, I can probably get a grub screw from somewhere.
It's likely a metric thread.
Yeah, it
Nothing
is.
too fancy.
Everything else is metrical. I think the Chinese generally do use metric when they sell things here because it's just makes sense, doesn't it? Really?
Oh, you've got a thread gauge of you.
Yeah,
Dave.
I bought one just recently because doing a lot of stuff with old aviation and avionics stuff, I encounter a lot of different threads, and so I bought one of those, checked a thread, ordered the right bolts, and they fitted. Oh, it was amazing.
Nice.
Okay. So, what do they tend to be? Is it like old Imperial? Could be British standards or American threads? Or
actually, I've only checked one thread, and it was 3/8 inch something. It was 24 threads per inch, but that's the equivalent of a 3-letter initialism, and I can't remember what it was. UTF, I think, or something like that. No, that's ASCII type.
UNT?
Yeah, that would be it.
Or UNF?
UNF. It was UNF. That's the one.
I'd be surprised if Unicode doesn't actually have a font for threads.
Yeah. Got everything else.
But yeah, Andy, going back to your mill print, have you thought about maybe doing that in a different orientation to get strength?
Yes, but
obviously it's not always feasible to do that. But
no, I know. Tell you what, let me go and get it, and then I can hold it up, and you can see what I mean.
But yeah, I did that with a similar joint. It's quite a large piece because it's part of a costume prop, and I could print it like that with a small amount of support for this overhang. But because it's going to have quite a bit of shear force on the bottom, I printed it in 2 halves like that, and then joined them together. I think I posted the method in the Discord, but
you did, yes.
A ton of super glue trying to avoid the edges, and then if there's any major gaps, fill it in with a 3D pen using the same filament, and then smoothing the edges with a soldering iron. I don't know how well that can pick up, but that turned out quite well. You can definitely see where it's been smoothed over, but it's almost hard to feel. You
What's
know,
that?
the join that I made with the soldering iron.
Oh right, yes.
I did learn that the best bit was the wedge shaped one.
Oh yeah, is that like a pyrography bit? Is it or?
Don't know. It comes with the standard little half a dozen bits that you buy with a soldering iron. But any sort of knife shaped one, I guess, would do. Anything with a nice flat edge.
Just caught my mouse and inadvertently video off. So this is the coffee grinder. So goes around like that. And it broke. And stuff.
I had one like that. It also broke, but that's because I got so fed up with hand cranking it, took the crank off and put a drill on instead.
I've tried that actually as well. Just yeah. It does fit. Just drop the nut off there now. So there's the plug piece there, and what it looks like is that.
Oh,
That's
right.
reinforced. I've actually put some tiny screws. So you notice these little holes here.
Mhm.
2 screws
Mhm.
into that one, and I actually reinforced it around there, so you can probably see the just about the residue of the super glue and bicarbonate of soda that I put in there
Hmm.
to really shore it up. But I wasn't that satisfied with it, so I made a new one. Come on, out you come. It's quite snug.
I'm in the middle of a project. I'm having a little bit of problem with it though. I'm wondering if anybody feel like giving me a piece of advice if we're done with everything else. Or
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to build the pelletizer. I've got 3 iterations so far, and I'm printing a 4th one. The first one was this, but it was built with a lot of support
Mhm.
because of the shape, and the tolerances are not good. This little hole here is supposed to fit this little collar on the mill piece, and it's very, very tight, and it wouldn't even go far. Sorry, I can't speak. It won't go all the way in. The bearing doesn't fit in either. I went back, I printed a test piece, I got the tolerances worked out, and I went back and I modelled this, thinking if I printed it in smaller parts, I could just bolt it together and waste less doing iterations. The bearing fits in perfectly fine, and the mill goes all the way through like it should. The problem is
Hmm.
the mill is slightly narrower than the ball bearing. Ideally, what I'd like to do is take that screw out, find out the thread on it, get a threaded rod, and have a bearing on each side. But that screw is extremely tight, and I cannot get it out without using a vise. My next iteration, I put a little slice in here. I'm sorry about my fingers. All the hand washing recently is messing it up. Bearing goes in fine. This goes in. That little slice is to put a carpet blade in. And I was hoping that it would shim and it would work, but it's still too loose. So I put a little hole in to push that in, and it sort of worked. The plastic going through it actually got gnashed. You can actually see the blade marks on it.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, it also pushed the mill into the back,
Oh, right.
and it's cutting it through.
Yeah, it's a lot harder than PLA, isn't it?
The iteration that's printing at the moment also has one of those slices there, put one on the other side. But I have a horrible feeling it's just in the end going to cut the metal. I think the best option is to have a bearing on either end to keep it captive. But I have no idea how to do it because I can't get that screw out.
Are you sure it's not reverse threaded?
I have no idea. It's extreme.
It likely would be, given the fact that it's a cutting tool.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite of whatever way the tool is supposed to turn.
Don't go like drawing blood on film. I think you would need
No.
to.
Yeah,
put-
it's likely
you
also
have to
Loctited and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I was thinking about what you were saying earlier about it having too much play in it. So can you just show the mill tool again to start with? So the bearing goes on that stepped shaft right behind
Yep.
the blade. What's
Bearing goes
behind
there.
the bearing? Sorry, so like what is there anything that attaches to the back of that tool? A motor, I presume.
There'll be a collet.
Okay.
This little bit here.
Mhm.
Collet. Not a collet. A connector. It'll be
Mhm.
connected to a stepper motor.
Mhm. Is there enough space in there, do you think, for a second bearing?
So, like here,
Yeah.
probably. I just need enough space on the end of the shaft
Mhm.
to put a screw to hold it to the. I can't. My brain's not working. Sorry.
The coupler.
Coupler.
Motor
That's it.
coupler, yep. Um,
I just.
it would be nice to have a bearing each side of that cutter, I think. But
It would. I think it's the best option, but
yeah.
I've got no way of doing that.
If it's impractical, then two rear side of the tool might help.
What
Um,
I had another idea. I don't know if it's just a bit outlandish, but what about making that back plate out of a bit of alley?
that's what I was thinking.
Well, the
You can have-
Stanley blade is steel, so I figured that would work just as well as an aluminium plate. In fact, slightly better because steel's harder.
Or Andy, are you thinking of that back face that we can see there with the tool
Indeed,
sticking through
yeah.
it? Right.
Not that.
Yep.
The reverse
The
face
opposite
to that.
Yeah. So this side here,
No,
No,
the
other way
other.
around.
that side.
No, turn it over.
That face.
Side.
Ah. What
Because
would that?
It will give you rigidity.
Yeah.
What's the diameter of the widest part of the tool? The bit that the bearing goes 9.8. I think you can get a 9.8 drill.
Probably.
Because you could use the aluminium plate, or on the back of there for an extra bearing surface.
Yes.
Although another option I was thinking of is putting that tool on a slight swing arm. So have a flat metal surface with a swing arm with the tool on the end and a spring to press it against the surface. So instead of trying to firmly constrain every part of the assembly, you have the spring to accommodate for any variation and to keep a constant pressure on the filament.
Yeah. Because the whole problem at the moment is deflection.
Exactly. Whereas if you've got a spring, you can at least adjust the preload on that spring to give you enough force.
I can give it a try. Let's see if I get some spring steel.
Try and find something off the shelf, I'd say.
What sort of spring would it need to be? Just a coiled spring.
Yeah, a compression or a contraction spring would be fine. Just a normal coiled spring. You'd probably want a block at each end to bolt it to your assembly, but again, you could 3D print that.
Yeah.
You think like a standard spring on a car with a ball joint at each end and a spring in the middle.
Yes.
And then you have your arm with a pivot point for the top of your spring, and then your base platform has a point for the bottom of the spring.
Or I could just wait for the makerspace to open and stick it in a vice.
Yeah. If you need springs, I do have a few.
Yeah.
But I have more than that, in fact, because I've disassembled so many printers and gadgets over the years. I have boxes of springs.
Yeah.
Multiple different. Depends how much pressure you need.
It would probably need to be a one of those springs they have in clothes pegs.
Torsion spring.
Torsion spring.
Yeah, that would work. Torsion springs can be a bit hard to find. Well, to define, I guess. But you could
I've
use one of them.
seen. I saw an article actually of someone using 3D printing filament to make torsion springs.
Yeah, you can. It's all
I
about
doubt it would be strong enough
spring
though.
rate, though. That's the only thing. If you need
Mhm.
something with a high spring rate, i.e., a high amount of force, a very stiff spring, then PLA or filament probably wouldn't do it. But
I wonder if I could do
there's
a
many
small
ways
piece of
to
piano
apply.
wire.
There's many ways to apply a twisting, a bending moment,
Mhm.
or a spring moment, using linear compression springs or extension spring.
Yeah.
Compression and the other one.
Also, the
Mhm.
spring would have to be on the bottom shaft, pushing it towards the cutting side as well, wouldn't it? So pushing it like that, so it's over the top.
Yeah.
'Cause other than that, I can't think of another way to. God damn it! I put the bearing in there, didn't I?
hmm
That's going to be a pain to get out.
Wouldn't it?
I'd suggest adding a small hole in for taking bearings out in your part. I've done that
I'll do
before.
that in the next iteration.
Wouldn't it be worth making it the same kind of construction as the filament clamp on it, where you have
Yeah.
Yes.
That's essentially what I was thinking.
no nut with a small bearing with a ridge in the middle of it that is pushed against it by a spring.
hmm
Yeah.
And the filament goes between the two.
Mhm.
Because that's a proven way of driving filament, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, the mill will pull the filament through. It's just the only problem I'm having at the moment is the deflection. I'm hoping with the shield, the standing blade on both sides,
Mm.
it'll just no longer deflect any
It will
further.
constrain it.
The problem is, will it go through the Stanley blade? It's a mill that's designed for wood, so I doubt it will go through very far.
It's likely
very
a
fast.
similar hardness to the steel, to the
Yeah.
blade, so you should be okay. But
My
yeah, you might want to look into the spring method anyway, because if something does get stuck in that setup with a fully constrained tool like that, it will definitely snap something, and it won't be nice.
no.
Potentially be very unsafe as well.
I was trying to make the walls thick for that reason.
I think maybe a spring mechanism like what you see on an extruder would maybe be a good way forward. Because at least if
I'll have a look at that.
something gets stuck in there, it will just chew it up and spit it out instead of exploding
Mhm.
like fully constrained assemblies typically do.
I will make the base a little thinner as well, then there's more of the shaft visible.
Mhm.
And just make an arm that'll push on it then.
Mm.
I mean, making the device taller.
Actually, I'll try and dig out. There was, I'm sure you've heard of Matthias Wandel, is it Vandel?
Matthias Wandel.
Yeah.
Wandel. Yeah.
He did an auto feeder for wood, so for pushing wood through bandsaws and table
Yes.
saws. And it's got a similar mechanism to what I was thinking, where you've got a spring pressing down on an arm that presses into the material that you're, well, in his case it was dragging, but in your case it would be cutting through. I'll see if I can dig that out, because that might be a good.
It was quite a while ago he did that one. I remember it. I think it was before he moved to his new house.
But that should hopefully be some good inspiration, I think. And again, he makes everything out of wood, so.
He does, yeah. His gear's a bit noisy though.
True, but that's not the end of the world. Metal gears are also noisy.
That's true.
And even plastic ones, actually. 3D printed ones can be quite noisy.
Yeah.
Yes, they can actually. I suppose it's just the nature of them being gears.
And the
got a lot of-
tolerances you design them to.
You've got a lot of surfaces moving against each other,
Mhm.
Yep.
so the vibration and
And
friction.
it produce a lot of heat, which means it's not very efficient.
Hmm.
Uh,
How are we doing for time? What time is it?
10 to 9. Yeah, 10 to 9.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Don't know if anyone else has anything to show. I've got tons of 3D printed bits as always. What you
I
got
bought
there?
some more dry.
Lubricant. Okay.
You've probably seen the videos.
Hmm.
People have been saying that you can engrave on stainless steel by spraying a bit of Molly Dry on and then lasering it
Oh, right.
with just a low-ish powered diode laser. So
Hmm.
I've got a load of excess superfluous cutlery, which is stainless steel. So it's going to give that a try.
Hmm.
Okay. So what does it do? Is it
Is it like a chemical
like-
reaction?
molybdenum?
Yeah, some sort of stain, but it's permanent.
Hmm.
From what
Okay.
I've got.
I guess it's like a chemical etching almost.
So what the molybdenum that's in that?
Yeah, that's the one.
What form is that in? I presume it's not just the metal. I presume it's some kind of salt of it or something. Is it?
Ooh, now you're asking.
The answers.
That nobody's mentioned that on any of the videos I've seen.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure anybody.
Still a new technique. You know,
Yeah.
no one really knows exactly how it works.
Maybe. Yeah.
Still at the stage of being witchcraft.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. I still want to give that filament remelting idea a go, 3D printing remelting idea a go. You know, where you make a part, encase it in green sand, and then heat it past the melting point of the plastic, and it just forms a solid block, hopefully in the same shape as the printed part goes
Have you
in.
seen CNC Kitchen's video on that?
That's what got me started on the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there
Yeah,
doesn't seem to be an awful lot of research. I mean, obviously there's his research, and I think there's 1 or 2 papers on it.
Yeah.
But it would be a significant design change if you're designing parts specifically to go through that kind of technique. Because you have to print the thing solid, you can't just go designing entire blocks
Yeah.
of plastic anymore, because that just takes way too long and too much material. So you
Yeah.
almost have to go back to designing things like they're going to be injection molded. But
Yeah.
then again, you can then prototype an injection molded part without making an injection mold.
So green sand, is that what they use for casting then?
That's right. It's like a silica sand mix or something like that.
Okay.
Is it the mixture of silica sand and bentonite clay?
Yes, I think it's like something like that. But yeah, I might at some point when I've got less projects on, touch wood, buy a couple of kilos of that green sand and just give it a go with a solid 3D benchy or something.
Yeah.
You might find it cheaper to buy play sand than a bag of cat litter.
Yeah,
A lot cheaper.
I'm sure it
Though
probably.
you'd need to grind the cat litter though.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Maybe I might get something off the shelf just so I can say it's almost a standard, I guess. Or at
Mhm.
least it's a consistent mix.
Mm.
Whereas making it yourself might add too many errors up.
Yes, that's true.
Especially if if I'm proposing that to the guys at work, because they don't typically
Yeah.
invest in major manufacturing processes that haven't had some level of maturity to them.
Yeah. And ordering cat litter for.
Yeah, cat litter and a grinder. They'd be like, "What are you on about?" Whereas if you-
Tasty.
But I think we might. I don't think we're going to do much casting at our place, but we might be able to get some green sand if we do.
It might be an idea if you're looking at parts that strong is to actually get a bench top injection molding machine.
Could do, but I still think green sand
So-
in an oven might be an awful lot cheaper.
Maybe.
It depends
what-
on the quantities, I guess,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, again, the strengths of 3D printing in terms of low cost for small numbers, combined
Yeah.
with the strength of injection molding, I think would be a great advantage.
It would, I think, particularly considering the upfront costs associated with
Mhm.
injection mold. You know, they're so vast.
Yeah, and the lead times. I mean, it's
A simple mold is thousands, isn't it?
for a big machine, yeah, or for
Yeah,
a mid-sized machine.
if it's just the benchtop machine that I mentioned, then you're looking at about a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter area. So 10 centimeter cubed.
So you're still looking a couple hundred to get that machined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Although-
where 3D printing is in stark contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I
What you can. Sorry, go on.
was just going to say, so if you could combine sort of the remelting technique, you could get an in-between where you could maybe get 99% of the strength of injection molding for the cost of 3D printing, plus an oven and some green sand.
Yeah.
And the
There's a
electric bill.
way you can do low volume injection molding, and you get an aluminium frame.
Mhm.
You put a negative that you've 3D, well, so positive that you've 3D printed in, and you fill it with a very high heat resistant, hard setting silicon,
Mhm.
and you do two sides with that. And then you've got a mold that you can make 20, 30 copies of before the silicon breaks down too far.
Hmm.
But there's also the lost PLA method,
Mm-hmm.
That's for what, metal casting, isn't
which
it?
gives you
Yes.
aluminium casting. I'm wondering whether or not that kind of, well, I guess what you're doing when you bake a part
Hmm.
constrained by green sand or what is effectively the same as like lost PLA up to the point that you're not evaporating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're just ending up with the same material at the end,
You are.
but you're not going to get more than one copy of. So I guess it might be interesting to make a mold out of something more durable, like I don't know, plaster of some sort,
Mhm.
and put PLA chips into it and heat that up. But you'd have to have like a reservoir at the top because obviously there's air gaps,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's going to have to settle
Hmm.
out, so you're going to lose some of your volume. So you'd have to have some head
Mhm.
to like replace that loss.
Yeah, I was
I
thinking of similar for the recasting idea. So instead of printing in 100% plastic and then making the cast around that, the mold around that, is printing in 50% plastic and then having 50% of the mass in just pellet form or filament form above, so that when you heat it, it naturally will just feed into the void.
don't know how it would work with this, but I watched someone casting a brass or bronze, I can't remember which, cannon, and they actually had to put a 75% of the total weight of the cannon as a reservoir at the top. And even then, they were getting air voids. Because
Yeah.
of the weight, you need weight behind it.
Right, yeah.
The plastic may not have the amount of weight, you might need to add additional pressure behind it.
It's also very viscous, isn't it? So
Mhm.
I guess you might have issues with kind of resisting gravity for too long to settle out properly. So
Mm.
Mhm.
it's an interesting area.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Mhm.
all
lot of
new
possibilities.
studies. Again, there's so little research done that, well, we're really on the cutting edge, on the frontier, as it were.
Yeah, it's interesting, really, that amateurs can have such a potential impact on the area of research, because generally these kind of things you'd expect only to be in big institutions. And the fact that we could end up with a new technique,
Mhm.
it just came out of people who are interested in it, not necessarily doing it as their core function,
Yeah,
or job function.
exactly. I think that's. Would you associate that to do with 3D printers being so open source? Obviously, not all of them are, but a lot of 3D printing technology is.
I think the philosophy behind it is very open source, even though, of course, stark examples that counter to, but things like Thingiverse and a lot of
Hmm.
the Prusa design.
But
all
do you
those
think
things.
that helped in forming
Yeah.
the method? or
Yeah, I
the
think it kind
concept?
of. I think so. I think it probably it set the philosophy,
Mhm.
influenced people. So their expectations were that it would be open in general, at
Yeah.
least some of it. So I think that probably is instrumental, really.
Mm. Interesting thoughts.
Have you got anything interesting going on there, Mal?
I've been doing a lot of crochet lately. That's
All right.
about it.
Yeah.
I got this sort of like rainbow variegated yarn when I was visiting Emily. And it's like I realized if I did like one little project with it, I would lose like all of the different colors. So I'm making a giant doily.
Oh, that's lovely. I love the way the colours change through it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna use it as like a wall hanging.
I don't know if that would work, as the weight would make it stretch downwards.
Yeah, my plan is to have like several different thumbtacks like at key points to allow it to like stretch out so it's not all just from like one point. I've seen some people use like hula hoops or embroidery hoops. But I kind of just want to see how big I can get it before I run out of yarn. So we'll see.
My wife does crochet, and she's done some quite interesting kind of abstract, relatively small pieces about that kind of. Some of them have been like, she did a little cottage and stuff, and she's also done some abstract ones with circles and discs and little cups, sort of held together. And we literally hung them off some twigs. Literally went out, got some twigs, and I just trimmed them down a bit.
I've got a crocheted Gandalf.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
And there's a Smaug as well, which I've got somewhere. My wife had them commissioned from someone doing stuff like that on Etsy.
I know, I've been thinking about trying. Right now, my goal is to work towards being able to crochet a sweater. But I also want to try my hand at like little stuffed animals and stuff.
Plushy type things.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
There's something along that line I've been interested in trying out. It's a very old technique that I've actually only just come across, and that's needle felting.
Oh, my roommate tried it and hated it. Yeah.
My stepdaughter was given a set by her girlfriend for her birthday, and it was just little figures, little ones about that big. I think it was a cat. And she seems to find it really easy to do as well. It's kind of there's like a little chunk of polystyrene that you use as the basis that gets discarded at the end of it. But she just spent hours and hours with a lump of fluff going with what looked like a crochet, but it's not a crochet hook. Yeah, the results were actually really quite good.
I'm going to have to drop the call for a moment. My phone battery is running out, and it is currently hotter than the center of the sun.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, no
worries. It's interesting. I saw a video. It might have been a TikTok or something of a guy who does like custom rugs. And he's got the special rug gun thing, and you feed different colors in, and you just hold the trigger and basically paint with the thing. Actually seems kind of fun to.
You paint with rug.
No, you paint on a. So there's like a gun, and it takes like a spool of yarn of rug wool or whatever you want to call it, and it injects it with a needle, twists it, and then cuts it, and then
Oh, right.
withdraws. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it goes da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And you basically
Oh, wow.
it goes so quick you can basically just paint with it almost.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it probably takes quite a time and definitely a space investment, especially if you're doing large rugs. But I think it'd be
Presumably it's
great fun.
yeah, it sounds fun, but it also sounds like you'd have to put a lot of effort in to learn how to do it properly.
Yeah, and you might end up with hand-arm vibration stuff and all sorts of weird things because it seems
Yeah,
like
yeah.
quite a heavy piece of kit, even though it's just a handheld device.
And
Yeah.
here's my mum did a 6 foot by 4 foot rug by hand.
Yeah. I don't know if you're trying to show something, Ken, but
No, I'm not. I don't have a camera on my computer.
fair enough.
Oh.
But yeah, rugs can certainly take a long time, I think.
I really would like to get some textile stuff
Hmm.
going at the makerspace. Obviously in our current place, it's not particularly
Especially with all the
conducive.
damp, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a couple of knitting machines. I mean, they're manual ones,
Hmm.
but they're literally just in the room above me at the moment in storage because we can't really use them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use them, but I would really like to get some textile stuff.
Mhm.
Lady who I met through, the stuff I did for XR,
Mm-hmm.
the crates that was.
Oh yeah, the gal who was sort of leading the toy swap.
No, it's this is just someone else who's
okay.
involved in it as
Mhm.
well. She was very interested in the makerspace, asking a lot of questions.
Mhm.
She's into rag rugging. So she makes rag rug, which I really like.
Hmm.
And literally just collects rags and perpetually, and then makes rugs out of it.
Mhm.
All the sort of random patterns that you get from that. I really like them.
Hmm.
Rag rugs
She was
do look cool.
keen. She wants to do more rag rug work, and when I said, well, we're looking for a bigger space, she said, oh yeah, if I have some space down there to do that, I could really do some. So she was really enthusiastic about the idea. Oh yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, that's not very idea, isn't it?
My mum made that for me years ago because she started doing it after her mum died because her mum used to make them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
This is her first one, I think. She did a Monet one that she's got up at home on the wall.
Mhm.
Lily's, I think it was.
Oh, the water lilies. Right.
Yeah.
I think actually Monet is probably quite well suited to that because she isn't it?
Hmm.
So it probably works quite well with a low resolution material like rag rugs or
Mhm.
You're just not making it big enough.
On the subject of the knitting machines and them being manual, something I've wanted to do for probably about 10 years now is actually make a manual knitting machine CNC.
Like a conversion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's
a few that have been done, but it's mostly with brother machines.
Yeah, there's a lady who did one of the it might have been a TED talk or something. She's Australian and she's a stargazer and also a rug weaver, and she made an LED and woven stellarium, like 12 feet across, that you can sit inside, that she wove, not by hand. They got this knitting machine, and it was one of the programmable ones, and they couldn't make it do what they wanted because they had to cut everything into sections manually with Photoshop and put it in a special format that this thing could ingest, and I couldn't get it to go. And her husband's an electronics geek, and he just went, "We can hack that." And he worked out what the format was that it was ingesting, and I don't know, some scripts in Python or Perl or something. I don't know what it was, and they worked out a way to automatically generate this. And she has basically knitted this entire stellarium, and then they put LEDs in it, so they can make constellations light up.
Mm.
And she takes it on
Wow.
tour. She's I think she's brought it to Europe. It was quite amazing to look at. You kind of wonder how on earth they came up with the idea. It's going to be one of those sort of free association conversations, isn't it, where you get totally wacky outcome. Well, why don't we do it with a knitting machine and put LEDs in it?
Yeah.
Love those kind of out there ideas because
Mhm.
It's going to be one of those things.
more interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things found by the inhabitants of Mars when they come back in 2,000 years' time, and they're just like,
Explain that.
"How did this thing come again? What is this?" Yeah,
This is how our ancestors from the year 2000 catalogued the stars.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they'll confuse it with the Bayeux Tapestry or something like that, won't they?
Mhm.
It's funny.
Yeah,
I
like-
think that way about the marble machine as well. I don't. What was
Mhm.
the fella's name who's doing the big marble machines?
Wintergarten.
That's the one. I forgot his actual name though, but I don't know if you've heard of it, Andy, but it's this big. Basically, it's a giant music box. It's a size of easily of a server cabinet, if not bigger.
Right.
And you crank it on the side with a handle, and it's got like a xylophone and drums and everything, and all the marbles drop down.
And they play tunes as they go.
Yeah,
they
and
go.
there's like a big drum on the back with pins in it for the programming, and it sounds really cool. And I
Yeah.
was watching. He does YouTube videos like weekly, and I was watching. I'd watched them from almost the start to like the 250th episode or whatever. He's been working on this thing for years. Because it does have some really good design and it does have some promise to it. But personally, I'm getting a bit disenfranchised with it, I guess. More the fact that he's designing it for like absurd reliability. So what was he trying to do? Like 2 million marbles dropped in a row perfectly without any errors, which
Now,
sounds
to be
okay.
fair, the original one fell apart after one use.
That's true, and obviously he is trying to avoid that. But part of me says you probably can get that reliability, but it'll be a lot cheaper and a lot easier to design it to fail safely rather than design it to play perfectly 2 million times and then completely break after one failed marble.
I guess it's like designing generation ships, isn't it?
Mm.
Like the sci-fi thing of if you're going to go to the stars, you're going to have to build spaceships that last for multiple generations.
I think he is planning to go on tour with it as well.
Yeah.
So you really wouldn't want to have to cancel or something because a marble got jammed somewhere.
No, but that's kind of what he's writing himself into a corner, I guess, at least in my opinion, by designing to play without a failure. Instead of designing around failing safely, it's designing around not failing.
Yeah.
Or perhaps being maintainable.
Yeah, or being maintainable.
He also runs the risk of never completing it.
That is true. That is true. I mean, that's a problem that we all have.
Yeah.
And our projects are nowhere near on the scale of like a 30,000 part monster, or whatever part count he's up to now.
Yeah, there's quite a good marble run down where I come from, which is in Devon. It's in sort of North Devon, and it's a place called the House of Marbles, which used to be a marble factory, and they have what was at one point I think the world's largest marble run, and it is it's in a stair. It's sort of the top of a stairwell, so you've got 2 flights of stairs going up, balcony, and then it goes up again, and it's all the walls. It's 3 faces that run along, and they're probably 5 meters. So it's like if you took the makerspace
Mhm.
and you made all the walls a marble run.
Mm.
It's massive. It's absolutely.
It does
You
sound
stand
really cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's
Mm.
very old. It's probably 50 years old,
Mm.
and it's all kind of brazed brass runs and things like that.
Mhm.
And they occasionally do have to stop it to maintain it because obviously it wears out. It has had marbles running for decades,
Mm.
like twice a day, 7 days. Well, probably 6 days a week, for multiple decades.
Mhm.
You make things out of metal,
Yeah.
frictional.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I think they've made it reproducible. It's
Hmm.
maintainable.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a big thing for making something reliable, but there's also a big thing for making something maintainable as well.
Yeah,
You know.
I think there's a sweet spot in between where
Yeah.
you're gone something that's going to last forever, but is going to take forever to design,
Yep.
and something that lasts a decent amount of time and is easy to replicate and replace.
Yeah. That's something a lot of what would you call them? Sort of young engineers, young entrepreneurs, I guess. People who starting their own venture, I guess, don't seem to always grasp straight away. You make a cool product, you put it out there, it might be reasonably priced and everything like that. But then you actually have to support the thing for the next 20 years.
Mm.
Or not. some might
I
do.
think that's one of the cultural changes that's occurred in the last 20 years is that things are much more throwaway.
Mm-hmm.
Tools, bits of hardware that really are only designed to last a short number of years.
Yeah.
And they've kind of made things. They've optimized for ease of manufacture and cheapness. So really work very well. Hence why the mill on this, because I was using it today, and it failed.
Yeah.
After 8 months or something. But it probably, if I'd only used it 1 week. But I like coffee. I have to have it every day.
Yeah.
So I used it frequently, and it wore out.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite endemic. It seems to be the way that things are designed these days.
That's true.
Obviously, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say it's almost the opposite in my day job, where you're expected to support a vehicle for anywhere up to like 50 years or more from the first prototype running off out of the factory to the last one being disposed of. Being disposed of is actually a part of our process, of our cycle.
It should be. Really.
They call it the CAD-MID cycle. I can't remember exactly what all the steps are. There's like concept, assessment, manufacture, support, and stuff like that. Where you're expected to support the thing for like 50 years. And that's some people's entire careers,
I think that encourages the use of common parts, which are, so minimized number of specialty parts and things like yourself.
The problem we have is that parts that you would think were commonplace actually become obsolete in that time. Even stuff that you'd think would be standard forever, like relays or circuit breakers, go obsolete in 20 or 30 years when a new technology comes along that completely wipes the game clean.
I have a friend in the US Army who's a wireless, not a wireless operator, the people that maintain the radios and stuff. And he says that when Radio Shack started to go down, the first thing the US Army did was they went and bought up huge stocks of old components, because their radios, some of them, are what they were using in Vietnam and even before that.
Yeah, exactly. Some of our stuff's been around since the 70s at this point. Even some of the British Army stuff. And it definitely is feeling its age. You know, we occasionally get requests for obsolete parts, obsolescence management, where the original drawing has long since gone. It might even be for something as simple as a 5-watt resistor, for example. And 5-watt resistors are still around, but it's not the exact same. It's got slightly different dimensions. So you have to get the closest one possible, but you can't get the exact same one anymore.
Breakout boards.
Yes, yeah, that's, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of breakout boards in the American equipment.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that maker culture does perhaps combat slightly, because if we keep the STL files, if we keep the original CAD design file,
Yeah.
then you can recreate that part, because in most likelihood there will be some kind of 3D printing in the future.
Mhm.
So when STL is completely obsolete and what a SLA and all those kinds of things, and they come up with this brand new thing, it's probably going to have a way to take a 3D design and actualize it.
Mhm.
So I suspect with it all being open source, it should mean that you'll be able to take a 30, 40, 50-year-old design and say, oh, yeah, I wonder if we can spit that out on the new MKR 1000.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if you need to convert the file format to something more modern.
Yeah, I mean, they're keeping old IBM computers from 50 years
Yeah.
ago. And they've had to reverse engineer formats and even schematics on those kind of electronics.
Mm.
But possible to do it. And I think if there is any interest in it, then I think it would be possible to convert things or at least redesign it. You might be able to just visualize it and then say, oh, yeah, we'll use the AI system to create the new one for us.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it'll combat that to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're not already buried in piles of junk,
Oh, pardon me.
I've probably taken it a bit too far though, because we've got a hand mixer. One of the one thingies that we've broken so often that I've probably spent about £40 repairing it, and the thing was like £8 to begin with.
But what kind of repairs are they? I mean, are you shoring it up and making it stronger each time? Or are you just...
I'm making it stronger each time. The very first repair was someone dropped the cable over a lit burner on the cooker. So I had to replace the cable on it. I've had to replace the motor because of it being burnt out. I've had to print a new connector piece for where it connects to the actual blender part attachment at the bottom. I've had to print a new button. And if you include the time I spent to actually model the button and the connector, then I've spent far more than the wand was actually worth in the first place. It's been cheaper and easier to buy a new one, but not necessary.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I think it may be uneconomically viable as from a business perspective, but from an ethical perspective and from a satisfaction perspective, it's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah,
you know, the fact that you own that thing now, it's because you made it basically. You read it. It's now so kind of ingrained in your personality that you do own it in a way that you can't really own something.
I've been brought up with a use it until it's dead mentality. If it's repairable, repair it, carry on using it. If it's not repairable, then replace it. My father, at one point, he had to attach a battery in his car with a nail. There were no threads in the connector. So he got a nail and he bent it around and twisted it with a pair of pliers, so it was actually quite tight and stuck on.
Oh, I thought
that for a couple of months before he actually bought a new connector.
I thought
Yeah.
you meant it literally drove a nail through the battery in order to keep it on its car.
No, no.
A bit extreme.
Mm.
that is asking for trouble.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, keeping the connector on the battery with the nails asking for trouble, but
Yeah. Did you guys see that? What was it? That sort of automata. And I know you saw it. The little girl on the motorbike where you twist the handle.
yeah, that looked really fun.
Mal, I think you've seen it. I don't know about the Andy and Dave. I don't know.
No.
Let me just redo the hyperlink. There we are. In case you wanted to see it.
Yeah, have a look.
But I thought that kind of thing would make a great sort of STEAM kit. You know, like a STEM kit.
Oh, my mouse has gone really weird.
Your Discord isn't crashing again, Andy, is it?
I don't know. My mouse is just disappearing. It's like
That's brilliant. The moving
I
is
think it
really
might
nice.
be right to go because it's stuck as a pointing finger now. All right, it wasn't scrolling from there. It disappears when I move the mouse into the main window, so I can't actually navigate because it's just disappearing.
But yeah, the effect that they got with basically just a fancy conveyor belt was pretty impressive. You know, I think, Andy, you definitely need to watch the video, but
Yeah,
considering it's all just paper and cardboard, you know, that would make incredible, whether it's a gift or whether it's any sort of STEAM kit for young children.
Yeah. I can see that. I don't try to play it at the moment. I'll look at it a bit later, but it does look quite nice. It's like a Lambretta style.
Yeah.
I quite like the idea of two-dimensional motors. For a long time, I thought it might be possible to make greetings cards with a it's kind of two-dimensional motor,
like a linear motor.
Well, no, to produce circular motion, but not with low torque. So basically, like a printed circuit coil, but maybe just as a film.
Yeah, I'll share you a link of a very flat circuit board motor that I found.
Yeah,
I don't think the rotor was that small, but yeah.
I was kind of wondering whether or not you could make it kind of semi-animated, or make the card move.
Yeah.
By having the circuit in the card. I don't know whether it's actually. Seems like an interesting idea.
People have certainly made interesting electromechanical devices that are circuit board thickness. You know, I'll send you a video of one. Ken, is it a Cricut, that stencil thing?
A Cricut, yes.
Do you think that would work for sort of cutting out the backdrops for that?
For that, yes, it'll cut card no problem. If you wanted more than thick cardstock, you'd need a bigger cutter.
Yeah, I'm not too fussed about that. I'm just sort of trying to explore the possibility of making these things a kit. You know, maybe even if we just start with 2 or 3 or 4, so that we can run a quick workshop with maybe Andy's kids and a couple of their friends or something, just to sort of engage with them and see how it works. Because something like that would be so cheap to make with a die press, is it, for cutting large stacks of card and paper? If we wanted to actually go on and make them a kit and sell them.
You could probably laser cut it. You could even make it.
Probably could, yeah.
Vinyl foam as well. But you have to be careful of what actual plastic the foam's made.
Yeah, it seems like quite a detailed background anyway, so doing something similar, especially with laser cutting, we'd need to be careful of that.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Having not seen it, Dangerous to call mouse.
You've seen the bike, haven't you, on the thumbnail?
Yeah.
But there's like several backgrounds that are not rotoscoped, like staggered, like with different scales on them, so that it goes round on a conveyor belt with to give an illusion of perspective,
Oh, I see. Right.
with the bike in front of it doing the wheels and everything.
Parallax.
That's the one. Parallax.
That's right.
But I think something like that again would be quite neat, especially if we could motorize it or have a little handle on top. Maybe have it worked into a music box or something that could play a little jingle while it's going around. There's plenty of things we could do with it.
Throw it into the ideas box.
Maybe I'll write a one-pager or something about it.
Idea.
Put it with the rest of them for someone to pick up
Sounds
one day.
like one of those kind of things that would be really good for an interactive thing on a.
Almost like an outreach thing.
Yeah, definitely outreach.
Something you can have just a stack of. You just say, come and take one, have a build for 15 minutes. Super simple.
Yeah.
Just a Pritt stick and a set of crayons or something.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. See what people come up with. Yeah, something like that I think would be really good. We just need someone to sit down and actually make the things as a kit form.
Well,
Yes.
my artwork is not up to snuff for that. I could make the kit, but
Yeah, I mean, it's might be one of them that we have to commission the artwork for, but that's not the end of the world, in my opinion. Anyway, we commission someone local to do the sort of background art, as it were, but we specify the file format or something.
Do you think it's something that, like, if you had like the specific parts set up, you could have whoever's making it do like their own drawings?
Yeah, you probably could. I'd love to see like a plain background, so just black and white outlines, so you can color in what you want if you're young and that's your thing. Or just sell the bare mechanism with the belts, but completely white paper, and you can just cut them out and color them to your own needs. Because the hardest part is the mechanism. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Making a long strip of paper with a picture on it isn't that hard compared to designing the wheels to get the proper parallax effect. That kind of thing. But that's something I think we could easily do as a space with some time and some effort, I think.
Yeah. I think if you do your one pager, and we can then
I'll do my
try
one pager.
who can do which bit, basically. But yeah, sounds like a good, interesting thing that would make people go wow. They'll think, yeah, that's amazing. I want to know how to do this.
Yeah,
it's what we need for that draw, and so the ideas like that are important.
We could.
Especially the background art could be local buildings as well. So you could do different versions.
It almost seem like one of those very obviously aimed at tourist souvenirs. Where it's got like Big Ben and like the eye thingy. I forgot the name of it. The Ferris wheel, basically.
The London Eye.
Yeah, the London Eye and all of that, but with obviously Telford and Wrekin landmarks.
Telford Eye probably sounds like a disease.
yeah. But a bit of the old Telford Eye. But I think I had a wacky thought of using the A0 printer to make a giant one. A giant. What's A0? A meter wide? Is it? 1.5 meters.
Not. It's like 1200.
Yeah. Well, A0 wide on a giant belt and have that in the window. Have like a full scale person on it almost.
Yeah.
That would be neat.
I was hoping you would be able to do with it.
That would certainly be an eye catch, I think.
Yeah.
Having a big animatronic fella running on a track or something.
We might end up having to hack large format. Is
it still playing up that?
I actually haven't had a proper chance to test it with the new inks.
Mm.
The printer I built blew up.
Yes, I remember the power
So
supply
I
one.
haven't rebuilt that yet. But no, you can't buy the inks for it
Mm.
anymore. I did manage to get some mono inks, but yeah.
I found some unofficial inks for it on eBay a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I found a number of them, and they show up as no longer available.
Mm.
Stupendously expensive prices. So yeah, I mean,
What's so special about these inks? Is it
they're old. That's all. It's the
is it the actual cartridges themselves that are hard to find?
Yeah.
Okay. I take it it's the.
Actually, I looked to see whether or not you can get the right formula of ink to refill them, and because they're so old, nobody sells refills for them. Because it's 20 years old. So you know, in printer terms, HP have long since for it. They supported it for years.
Yeah.
But I think we might end up having to use some of the mechanisms.
What about
it ourselves somehow?
What about just a bunch of Sharpies on servos and it just drops one down?
That would kind of make it back into a pen plotter again.
Yeah, just a very complex one.
Yeah. I mean, it's when it comes down to it, it's all probably. I don't think it's stepper motors. It's probably just DC motors because it's
probably got an encoder on it. Yeah,
it has got an encoder band which runs the whole width. Yeah, so that'll be usable for timing, and as long as you can pick up the pulse from the head. So in theory, it's one of those kind of things that we'd have to have a real will to do it.
Yeah, exactly. You need someone to come in and be like, yeah, that's a project I want to take on. That'll be real interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe with some expertise.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably actually replace the DC motors for stepper motors and stick a 3D printer board in there, a Marlin board, and turn it into a pen plotter.
Yeah, I mean, it could do all sorts of things like that. I mean, the paper handling is one of the biggest difficulties with any kind of home build like that, and you've kind of got the whole lot there. The paper handling on that is tried and tested. So, in theory, it should be.
Yeah, in theory, it's just the print head.
Yeah, it's kind of just moving that thing. I know that there were that generation of printers that they used to make vinyl cutters. Like, I don't know how they work these days, but when I still lived in Plymouth, this was like in the 90s, so it was pre that one there. I did some IT sort of work for a place called Significant Sign, and they made these massive vinyl signs, and they had a plotter which had an attachment which was a blade instead of the actual inkjet carriage, and it literally, you just unbolt the inkjet carriage, bolt this other thing on, and it had like an X-Acto blade in a little clip.
That's how they do it these days.
Yeah. All right. So it's the same kind of thing then.
Yeah.
It was just bearing so that it was offset so that the blade would follow as it turned, and it fed the.
It was on a camber. Yeah.
Yeah. So that it would actually swivel, so that it was always on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
It's very clever. And this guy used to make these big shop signs and things.
Yeah, they build that bevel into the blade these days.
Right.
And I would not want to do that with that printer because of.
Wasn't suggesting.
Yeah.
The risk for losing digits is.
Oh no, I'm not thinking of that. The blade's about 2 millimeters long. It's not big at all. You'd get a nasty cut.
Yeah.
But I was actually thinking of the rollers underneath. It's not going to have enough support for the vinyl or whatever it is you're cutting.
Yeah. I think with the plotter that we have there, the paper rests directly on the platen, So you've got
Yes.
literally a platen roller, which is the full width and plus of the paper. And you've got the baler arm just intercepts it as it comes off on the curl.
Yeah.
So it
Well-
prints on the curved wall at the top of it.
How wide is the print surface on that?
It's A0 and a bit, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah.
Because I have a 60 centimeter mat that's designed for cutters like that. So if it cuts directly on the platen, this could just be put on the platen, and we could make it so you could just swap the head out and either have a pen plotter or a cutter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things we could do.
And we could a laser, a low intensity laser for burning paper.
Yeah. I think when we have the space,
Mm.
then these things will become a lot more easy, and we'll have the capacity to have a lot more members come in and collaborate on these things. We won't have this pesky virus stopping from meeting
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah, sooner or later. Right. With that, should we wrap up? It's quarter to
Yeah.
10,
Okay.
Actually,
lest anyone has anything else to raise.
Not really. I was gonna say if we get the filament extruder gone and up and running, and we can get it so we can get repeatable widths of filament, we could start eBaying off spools of recycled filaments and try to put that in the coffers for getting a premises.
Yeah, I thought of a similar service, I guess, contacting local engineering firms that maybe have 3D printers, saying, "Hey, we can recycle your failed prints, and we'll give you
Yes.
80% of the weight back." And the
Actually, I was going
20% could be
to.
sold.
I was actually going to suggest we contact the engineering firms that have 3D printing and say, "Look, we'll give you £1 a kilo. You'd be throwing it away otherwise.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we could do something like that.
It can go into your
I think it
Christmas
might be
fund."
better to just say, look, we'll take your waste prints for free because it will cost them to dispose of it. If they're producing it in decent quantities, then it will be actually a cost to them to dispose of it.
Yeah.
And if they give it to a charity that's going to recycle it, I suspect that look on that very favourably.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then they can say, hey, we're supporting a local charity.
Yeah.
And we're recycling this stuff, so good all round.
And we could also...
Go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, we could also say, yeah, if you give us your scrap, we'll give you a discount on new reels or on recycled reels.
I don't know if the engineering firms would want to use recycled wheels because of the spools, because of the repeatability of the thickness.
Yeah, some might not be too bothered, especially if it's just as drafting filament.
Yeah, though there is one problem with asking engineering firms. If it's a prototype, they may not want to let it go.
Yeah.
I imagine that's something that BAE would be quite close on as well.
Yeah, so. You might be able to shred it or break it on site before that.
I was about to say, take the shredder up to the place and shred it in front of them.
Quite frankly, if a company like BAE were that fussed about it but still wanted to support it, they'd just get an apprentice and a hammer. Quite frankly, that's...
build it into a trailer.
Yeah, come across in a almost like one of those big garden shredders where you just throw everything in the back, but you can tow it in the back of the car or on the back of the car.
I was just going to build a 20 by 20 aluminium frame and just stick an ice cream tub underneath it.
Yeah, that'd work. That would work. That'd be fine, I think. As long as we're not covering your carpet in splinters or whatever, then we'd be fine.
It's there's wire sticking out of it. If
Yeah.
I walk barefoot on this carpet, I'm in trouble. A little bit of plastic's not going to hurt.
Will not hurt much more than than it would anyway.
I actually walked out to my computer barefooted the other day and found female headers,
Huh.
spiky side up.
hmm
Ouch.
Well, at least you found them.
It's worse than Lego.
Mm.
On that note,
Yep.
I think we might as well wrap up.
No worries.
Okay.
Nice
Thank
to
you
speak
for
to you
coming,
all.
everyone.
Yeah, good to see you all.
I'll catch you all next weekend.
All right. See you.
Take care.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you in a bit.
Bye.